Hello, friends. Welcome to the Tell It Like It Is podcast. I'm your host, Alexi Bailey, and I have a very special guest today, my neighbor, Betty.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for joining me, Betty.
Well, it should be interesting.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Can you tell us where you were born?
I was born in Western Massachusetts in a small college town because my father worked for Amherst College there and lived there for quite a while before moving to Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So I experienced both a small town and a fairly large city area.
When you moved to Cambridge, was he still involved in colleges?
Yes, he was. Yes, he became the Buildings and Grounds Director for Radcliffe College and later for the Harvard Law School.
Okay.
So he was into landscape design and building maintenance and all of the overseeing that goes into supervising the buildings of academic institutions.
Oh, wow. So is that how you got your start in academia?
Well, not exactly. No. Probably when I married my husband, who was designed to be a professor because of his love of advising students and sharing ideas and mentoring young people with ideas. So we came to Princeton in, I lose track of time, but we've been here a long time. And that was doing something that he loved. He was somewhat of a Renaissance man. He could do things with his hands, build things without plans, to just have an idea and create something. And he was able to teach almost any of the natural history courses that the university needed teaching. And he just really wanted to help students. Even after he retired, kept his office open and was busy doing that kind of thing.
Gotcha. What did you study?
I studied environmental biology at Harvard.
Okay.
And probably my interest in the outdoors came from my grandmother, who lived in Barre, Vermont, and we would go and visit her in the summers, and she had a beautiful garden in her backyard. And some of it was wildflowers. And she was so proud of being able to get them to grow and knew something about their requirements. So I've always remembered that. I guess that's why I started getting interested in wildflowers too.
So like I was saying before we started, like I'm just interested in all of it and what makes us who we are and what we gravitate towards. You said you studied
environmental biology.
So that was more than just flowers and
oh yes. How all of nature is involved, it's all connected. Our experience dealing with nature, what can we do? How can we, climate change, of course, now is the big thing, but that's part of ecology, our interaction with the natural world. I mean, messing with it for a long time, and now we're going to pay the price.
Right. So what did you want to do with your studies?
Well, it's been mid-1980s. The Princeton Adult School was looking for someone to teach wildflower identification, and they first asked my husband because he's widely known, and he didn't have time to do it. So, like to me, as a second choice, and I've been doing it every year since. So I really enjoy doing that. The people in my classes are there because they want to.
Yeah.
They're not fulfilling a requirement by any organization.
So how long has that been?
Since the 1980s. That's what.
Wow.
A long time.
Okay. So what do you teach in the class?
I take them out into the field outside. I insist that they have some kind of field guide, and we go and we really get up close and personal with plants. Look at plant, what color is it? How many flower parts are there? Where are the leaves located? What shape are the leaves? Where is it growing? Okay, once you've done that, then go ahead and open up your field guide and try to figure out what the plant is. But without doing all of this close-up examination, you can flip the pages, but that's not very efficient.
Wow.
So I try to get people to really observe where they are, not just plants, but everything outside.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned the environment. Did you study that? Like, where were we back then?
that was really not a concern. That was very interesting. You know, in the 1960s, people weren't concerned with increasing world temperatures and so forth. We were just studying little compartmentalized bits of nature and, you know, trying to make sense of what we were seeing.
So when did it come to your radar?
You know, it's kind of hard to say. I'm not a date person, not date oriented.
I'm sure by the 90s it was.
Yeah, I think probably about then. And, you know, everybody was beginning to think about it because some of the effects were becoming noticeable.
Right.
You know, the diminishing ice caps in the Arctic and Antarctic. People think, oh, why is this happening? You know, the great hole in the ozone layer, letting all of the bad things in.
Right.
And people started thinking about it. And of course, there were all sorts of people saying, you know, nature has had these ups and downs for thousands, not millions of years. You know, we couldn't possibly be responsible for any of this.
Right. There's always like people saying clearly what you see is not really what you think it is, kind of thing.
Well, it's harder to deny things that you yourself actually see. It's when somebody says something, you know, like, well, I'm not going to get into that, but someone tells you something that is obviously a lie.
Right.
You know, why are they doing that?
Right.
Why are they trying to change the way things actually are? Are they in denial about whatever it is that's going on? But yeah.
I think for me the biggest thing is like the winters. Like, right? Do you like what has been your experience of winters?
They're definitely getting warmer and more exotic, rare changes in, you know, from one day to the next. I mean, we just had an example here. 2 days ago, temperature didn't get above freezing. Today it's going to be 70.
Right.
This didn't happen 50 years ago or whatever.
Right.
We would have giant snowstorms all through the winter.
Three,
Back
4,
years.
like.
Oh, you know, I remember one Christmas Eve trying to get to church, and there was 2 feet of snow on the ground and drifts, and people had a hard time getting there.
Right.
That hasn't happened again.
But back then people still got out, right? With 2 feet of snow, were you trying to get out?
They did. Oh yeah, sure.
And it's funny now we have a little frost and everything shuts down. And
oh, that's true. Yes, yeah, we're all worried about it more. And you know, they've developed all this brining stuff that they go out and try to keep the roads open. And that gives people the idea that, you know, it shouldn't matter. You can go out and drive anywhere and as fast as you want to go because someone has taken care of it for you.
No, but that's I find that really weird because sometimes we have literally it could be 1 inch frost and like there's a whole traffic shut down, you know, schools, everything shut down, and they're like, it's safety. But before you'd have a foot of snow or 2 feet of snow and you were still going outside.
Yes, but people took personal responsibility seriously. They knew their safety was in their hands, and they made decisions based on that.
Right.
Now it's somebody else's fault if conditions aren't perfect.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. So if you knew there was ice and you went out, it was your fault. Now, if you go out and there's ice, it's like, who can I sue? Or
yes, right. I mean, why is someone taking care of this for me?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. It's just like all of those, like you've seen the world change like in front of your eyes, you know, and like maybe if you just came to this country or if you're younger, you're like, oh, this is just the way it's supposed to be. So you don't question it as much.
Yes, that's probably true because that's all you've ever known.
Yeah.
There's no way of comparing it with anything else.
Right. So what's one of the biggest contrasts you've seen develop?
Well, I think I just mentioned it, this concept of being responsible for your own actions. Excuse me. And that people want to blame somebody else when bad things happen. They don't figure it's their responsibility to not only take care of themselves, but have consideration for other people.
Has one of the things that I'm interested in is what have you seen in terms of social justice?
Well, do you want to define that?
Just like I guess like poverty and taking care of the others, and I think a long time ago there were more poor people, right? You would say, or would you,
Well, it's hard to know.
like
I mean, maybe the number of people you want to define as poor has always remained the same, but our consciousness of who they are and recognizing that they are everywhere has changed. And there were people, as you say, working for social justice, finding ways to help these people. And that's, of course, a good thing. I think awareness has increased. So that may be part of why there's more.
So you've seen more awareness, but you think more or less it's the same.
How can you tell?
Yeah, I mean,
back then we weren't thinking about all of the poor people, and now there's more news, newspapers, TV, all of the social media stuff, which I'm not into, that brings it to our attention.
I mean, you said social media, and I feel like social media is not different than the news or the newspaper.
Well, I want to disagree about that. I mean, newspapers, at least I hope, still are bound by certain journalistic rules about going and finding the facts and reporting what they find.
Right.
On social media, anybody can say anything.
Got it.
Right. I mean, how do you know where they got their information? Are they just making it up?
Yeah.
Did they read something somewhere, but they never cite a source, if that's what they have? This is all, I have this wonderful idea or opinion. Or,
right.
It's me.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think social media gives voice to more people, right? And the media before was just came from a smaller group of people, right? But I think social media helps us get a broader picture.
Yeah, you get to hear all kinds of crazy opinions out there.
So, do you think social media is good, or?
Well, I do not participate.
You seem skeptical about it.
Well, I have no interest in it.
Yeah.
I don't look at people's, any of the Twitter, Facebook, any of that.
Right.
I have other means of communicating with my children.
Right.
So I don't need to do that. I don't need to send pictures of my daily life to the world at large. I'm not interested in other people's pictures of their life from the world at large.
That's something that's changed a lot, right?
Oh, it has.
Yeah. You've heard like words like Facebook and Twitter creep into your world.
Oh yes, yeah. I'm quite aware of what they are.
I'm sure you have friends who are on there.
Not to a great extent. Okay. Most of my friends are from my generation.
Right.
Yeah. So I do have a friend who has Facebook in order to get pictures of her children and grandchildren, but others just aren't into it. I see no need.
Yeah. So Facebook and social media is more like where random people say random things.
Certainly seems that way from
yeah.
what I hear. Since I actually don't participate.
Right.
I don't know how it all works and
right.
how people do this. So.
Do you not necessarily in terms of social media, but the world is moving faster and you're kind of like not participating in like all these things.
Well, I'm not participating in all of it.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
No,
do you
go ahead.
How do you like, what do you feel about it? Is it like just fluff? Is it like a waste of time? Like what? You're not missing anything. It's not relevant.
I don't feel that I'm missing anything by not being on all of this. I have various news sources. I actually read a newspaper.
Right.
Do people do that anymore? Interesting. I watch various news programs on television. I do not sample Fox News to see what the crazies are doing. I'm just not going there. But, national, media, CBS, NBC, all of those, CNN, PBS, you get interesting opinions.
Right.
And I feel that, I know where the world is going. I don't need all of this flutter, as you say, going on underneath.
So, do you feel like all the news medias bring you different lenses, or do you feel like they're bringing you just a general story of the news?
Well, each one, of course, has their own reporters out there, wherever there happens to be at the moment.
Right,
And you do get different opinions depending on what you're listening to and the sources that their people in the field have.
right. Which ones do you find more reliable, or like what are the different lenses you've observed?
Quite know how to answer that.
But like, if you're like, okay, when I turn on NBC or when I turn on, like, what are the nuances?
It's really hard to say because I don't, each evening try to get
Right,
to
right,
all of the channels,
Right.
But, for a week I will watch one of them. And especially I like the news hour or news half hour that goes into the world news.
world
Like
news.
Nora MacDonald, I find very interesting. She has what seems to be interesting people in all of the hot spots in the world. So I try to make a point of listening to that. I also have a brother-in-law who, when he was working, was a reporter for German radio. And he was in Germany, and he has contacts all through the Eastern Bloc over there. And we have Zoom meetings every couple of weeks, and he kind of brings us up to date about what he's heard in different places. And sometimes it's a little different from what you hear on the national news.
Does any examples come to mind?
He seems to know people in Russia. That he was stationed in Russia for quite a long time,
Right.
back in the days, shall we say. And so he has a better understanding of how the Russian people feel. And it's very interesting. Some of them, of course, do not have any access to real news because Putin has control over all the media in there. But he seems to feel that there is this underground movement of people who are realizing that their country is going off in the wrong direction. But of course, they can't do anything about it because the moment they open their mouth, they're going to be arrested.
Right.
But it is interesting to know that there is this happening, and I haven't heard anything about that on the national news. I'm interested in just exactly what's happening at the moment.
I'm pretty sure that the average person going about their daily life is not pro-war. I'm pretty sure of it.
Well, let's hope not.
Right. I don't think.
Yeah, gosh.
I think there's plenty of people there who's just like here, who's just like, the government's doing whatever they're doing and I have no say in it. I have, I don't have they don't agree with it, but they don't feel like they have a way to do anything about it.
That's true here too, isn't it?
Right.
That's why a lot of these people are going sort of nuts and doing crazy things because they feel they don't have any input in what's happening.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of what interests me is that, we're human beings and we're having this life, this experience here in the planet. And I feel like sometimes people feel like they're not heard.
Yes.
Or it's not being, like all of these things are happening, and just so when you say you watch the news and you see the way the world's going, what do you see?
I see that things are kind of out of control. We live in a country where democracy hopefully is still somewhat strong, and we realize that there are other countries like, should we say, Russia, that are totally different in their whole concept of how a country should be run. And of course, we have no control about what happens over there. Seems as though we are doing our best to do what we can to help the situation without setting off a much wider conflict, which is very much on everyone's mind right now.
Yeah.
We just can't tell what that crazy guy over there is going to do. Nobody really believed he was going to invade until he invaded.
Do you think we should get involved when, a world power like Russia starts, invading other countries?
Well, we are trying. We're helping Ukraine.
Right.
And the problem is, of course, that Putin feels threatened by NATO.
Right.
And perhaps we are at fault for inviting all of those small countries around him to join NATO. I'm sure that really set him off.
Right.
And he feels that the Soviet Union should return to its former glory, that all Slavic speaking people should be under one entity, let's say. And perhaps this is influencing his thoughts. Now there's no graceful way for him to back off.
And I mean, I think that's self-preserving, right? Wanting to have Soviet Union back the way it was, having all the Slavic people under one country, that's a means for self-preservation.
Yeah, I know he feels that things have gone wrong, that things should go back to the way they were, and if they did, then people would respect him and Russia the way they did back in the bad old days, shall we say.
I'm still trying to understand the idea of these conflicts, right? Because we're afraid of Russia because they have nuclear missiles.
Yes, and they've threatened to use them. But, if he attacks, let's say, Poland with a nuclear weapon, what do we do? Do we immediately retaliate? And then he would retaliate? You can't outguess what's going to happen. You have to be prepared for whatever decision you eventually have to make.
Yeah, I didn't think we were going to get here, like with this whole nuclear thing again.
No, certainly we all hope not.
I mean, I don't know. It's like, is it greed? I think there's an element of self-preservation. I think there's an element of just wanting the best for your people, your country, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think in some respects, China's also like building their own.
Yeah, China is really watching the situation very carefully. So, how could we apply this to our interests, shall we say?
Right.
Should we try to do something here to emulate Russia? Should we help Russia by giving them what he wants? I think they're just going to sit back and wait and see what happens.
Deep down, I feel like we can work past, I don't know. Again, this is my humble human opinion. We can kind of work past the point of wanting to bomb and invade and like get to this militarized actions kind of thing. And I don't know the specific answer, but I feel like we're not talking enough, and it's really, really bad, because I think, when Russia does it, China thinks about it, we still have our military that we do our things. So there's no good guy here,
Well, it would be a wonderful world if everybody would just agree that we'll have no more military actions, we'll not build bombs, planes, any of this, we'll not have soldiers, and we'll all take this money we've been spending and do good things with it.
Because in the end,
we just don't trust each other enough to do that.
It's the poor people that die. It's the rich people, they get a flight out.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's the people who are stuck there, so it's in the poor people's best interest to kind of say, listen, we need, because in the end, to me, it's about money. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
You're killing poor people so you can have more money.
Do you really think that's the actual intent going on, or is it just what's happening because of the way things are?
That's what it boils down to. So I don't know if it's that's all they want, just money, or but China wants to be bigger, right? And bigger means more money.
Well, at least a share of the global trade and all
right.
That. I don't know, as they are thinking of penalizing their poor people in order to get more money that way.
Right. Well,
the poor people ignored.
Right. Poor people are expendable.
Pretty much.
And the people at the top, they want to increase and they'll protect poor people if it means more money, But at the end, if we have to lose a few to get more money, then that's what we'll do.
That's kind of heartless outlook,
Yeah, tell me what you think.
Well, I just don't think that there's real intent going on to have this situation to be what it is. I think it's happening because our interests are elsewhere at the moment.
You mean in America or?
Yeah, I mean everywhere in the world.
Yeah. It's hard to watch.
Yes,
For
it
the,
is.
for the most part, like all those shows that you talked about, it would be hard for me to spend a week watching those and reading about it, you know, and I think for me it's not that I don't want to be informed, but it's kind of like watching something really bad just play out, you know.
I don't mean that, I spent a whole week watching it. It's, maybe an hour a day.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
like,
okay. Yeah.
I couldn't do an hour a day, and
Oh, you
then
couldn't?
like,
Oh.
and then like to catch up again on it, like either later in the week or next week. It's hard for me to like consume it. Like I know it's happening, and I'd rather talk to people and
So-
in my
So you don't watch news? Oh, interesting. Okay.
yeah
How do you get your information?
talking to people. I would say.
Okay, all right.
And I'm on social media, and I think I'm gonna get off. So between social media and talking to people, that's how I get my news. I find maybe this is gonna sound wrong, but I don't see a need to be that well informed, especially if you're not gonna do anything.
Interesting thought.
Yeah, it really like it. I feel the pain, you know, and like sometimes when I'm at the gym, I'll watch the news,
Yeah.
you know, or if I'm on social media and an article, someone mentions an article or something, I'll go to it.
Okay.
Or every once in a while, if I want to know something, I'll look it up.
Okay.
But I'm not actively like, let me
Okay.
just.
Yes. Okay. I have a friend who does watch a lot of news and finds that it upsets her, but she can't get out of this habit of watching because she needs to know, and she has, responds to it.
Right.
Great feeling.
Right.
And then she comes and talks to us about it, and we all say, well, if we were running the world, we would do this, and it would all go away. But yeah, I can see where watching the news would have problems.
If you ask me, you know, I do think that the world problems are solvable, you know, and I think like you're saying, when you talk with your friends, you guys like, oh, we would do this.
Yeah, sure.
And usually what the conversation boils down to is, you know, you kind of have to be satisfied with the amount of power and money you have, and take care of the people under you, and not try to take more from the people around you.
Yes.
And that would kind of end the problem pretty much.
Yes. Yeah. We could all be satisfied with who we are and what we have. A lot of the problems would go away.
Right.
But, what about people with great ambitions, the ones who come up with new ideas, new inventions, new ways of doing things? Being sort of self-focused, shall we say, wouldn't have any meaning to that.
Right. I think the issue is once you decide to bomb someone on outside of your borders, or, you know, do something some that's very drastic. I think.
Oh, it is, yes.
So basically at the core of what I feel is that the good people of the world have to step up, right? And you can no longer say, oh, that's a shame, because you're complicit on some level by not doing anything.
Okay, well, take this current situation now. What are you doing?
Me personally.
Yes. What are you doing to make things better in the world?
I think the first step is we have to make sure that we're in tune with our community, and work, like you're saying, you and your friends, you get together and you talk about it. So that to me is the first step, talking with your friends about it. And if every person talks to their community about it, then we can have more organized communities about it. And I think organized community needs to have a platform where they can like form a larger structure and just work together. So not necessarily to do any kind of protest, but to be allies in these situations and be clear and vocal about it. So at the core of that, that's pretty much what the church is supposed to be, right? A larger structure for the community where we all pool together and they represent our ideas and be the good that we believe for the world.
Okay, so when you say the church, do you mean all the little individual ones or the concepts on which all churches are founded?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So the more that I kind of, because you see, like I'm talking to you, and then you're like, well, what do you think? And then I to me, it's so clear. You know, we have to be more vocal, because at some point, you know, Canada's gonna want to attack us. You know, China's gonna want to attack us. It's gonna take turns. You have to care, otherwise you'll be caught in it at some point.
Well, I think the basic tenets in which all religions are founded, like let's say for Christianity, the Ten Commandments.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody in the world believed in those and followed them, obviously we'd have a lot less trouble. But the problem is that each religion says, well, some of these ideas are good, like treat your neighbor the way you would like to be treated yourself. But then there's, we worship God in this way, and those people over there worship a different way, so they must be wrong. How are we going to get all of this together?
Mm-hmm.
We have individual churches where everyone agrees on ways to worship, that have a voice, and they do their best to help out here and there and everything. But what about the church down the street?
Exactly. I'm very passionate about it, and I think it's really simpler. It's simple, right? But I think at the end of the day, everyone has a certain amount of power, and you would lose some of your power if you were to join with other causes. I think I'm trying to understand the reason why it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And we're all Protestant churches for the most part, if you're not Catholic. I think all Protestant churches say they have the same exact mission. They just disagree on
the details.
Right.
Yeah.
And in those disagreements, it's just opinion. It's not necessarily that, and people make it more than it is sometimes. But I think if you believe in Jesus, then you're both Christians. And whether you believe in a louder service or a more reserved service, we're the same. I think that's where we are, right? That's what I think. So why aren't we doing more? And I think if all churches were more united, people would feel less committed to their individual church.
They might. Right. Well, it's my personal opinion that you don't even have to believe in God to do the right thing.
Right.
How should I say this? That standards of moral behavior have evolved as soon as, or during the time that human beings started living together, because you need these ideas in order to have a harmonious society.
Which we don't have.
Well, we don't. But, certain of these things have just happened because if we didn't do them, then this particular society disappeared. We have to respect other people. We have to help other people. And this is something that religions have taken, of course, and defined them in their own way. But I think that even for people who don't believe, that being a righteous person is something we all know that we should do, just because getting along in society requires it.
Right. I think what we're saying is that, deep down for me, I wonder, I look at these things like the Ukraine, and I think that the good people should be more vocal, and not just vocal. Most people think like, oh, they start to imagine like a protest kind of thing, and even if we're just like buying flights for people, sending buses to get them out,
Are we doing that?
But I think on an individual level, like, what is our individual church doing? Like we should be more, there's a lot of more lives and a lot more that could be done, you know. And I think be more sacrificial, I think is what I'm saying.
More involved with other people. Yeah.
Yeah. And we would be less tolerant of the Ukraine being invaded if we were more involved. Yeah.
It is true for some of us, and of course not true for others. It just depends upon how you view yourself in the context of society.
Yeah, no, and I feel like I could say it. You've seen a lot of U.S. involvement in a lot of countries over time. You know, um, would you say we're better than these other countries, or we do the same thing?
I think a lot of times our initial involvement is because we feel that whatever is going on in the country is caused by someone at the top treating the poor, the underrepresented people, unfairly. And we know that this is not a right thing, and we want to do what we can without, going in and smiting all the people we don't like.
Saddam Hussein came to mind.
We can't do that. Yeah.
He came to mind first.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we do empathize with people in other countries who are being treated wrongly.
Is that the reason we went to Iraq?
Apparently, somewhat. I don't remember all of the details, but of course there were the warmongering folks who said, "Oh, he's a bad person. He's got these terrible weapons, and we should go and get them." Of course, that turned out not to be true, but that was their reason for it. There's always going to be somebody who wants to use force to inflict their ideas on somebody.
Yeah, but that was in our name,
Well, it was, yes.
It's not like they did that. We did that,
Yeah, we wanted to meddle.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of things. A lot of things. Childhood. I wanted you to talk about a little bit about the way you saw the African American journey evolve. Like what you remembered when you were a kid, what you heard around you, and how that all evolved.
Well, of course, living in a small town in Western Massachusetts, I wasn't really exposed to any people who didn't look like me.
Okay, so it was a small white town.
It was, right. But moving to Cambridge was very different, certainly. Then there were people who didn't look like me, but they were fine. They were great people. I mean, I just don't remember ever thinking about why these people look different. They were just other people.
Right.
I had friends from various ethnic groups. I know my mother was good friends with the mother of one of my friends, and nothing was ever said about it in my family about these people are different. They should be treated differently. You should look upon them as something else. It wasn't, until I got to college and out into the world that, I realized that things were not all wonderful the way I'd already grown up.
Were you shocked?
I was disturbed. Why should this be happening?
So
I've known people that were like me, and they were great people. And I never really thought about.
So what were those experiences like? What did you see? How did it enter your awareness?
Well, in college, Black people were a minority at that time. I don't think they were treated differently in any obvious way, but I know that they felt uncomfortable because they were very much a minority, and I don't know how other people saw them. And I do.
Was it in your school, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They were a minority,
Mm-hmm.
and Harvard is a highfalutin college, and because of various social problems, not a lot of Black people had the opportunity to enter at that time. And so it was no wonder that they felt isolated and different. And I have to say that I did not have any real Black friends at that time because they weren't living near me in any dorm, and they weren't in any of my classes. They weren't in science, they were usually in humanities.
So
But that was become the time that I did become aware.
how was it made aware? Like, how did you hear about it?
Just
I don't know.
observing.
Were they protesting? Were they just talking the whole
No,
way?
they just seemed very withdrawn.
Okay.
They were not outgoing people. Usually they, would be on the fringe of a group, sometimes included in discussion and things, but they did not protest at that time. I mean, we're talking the 60s here.
Right.
That was before it all started.
They were happy to be at Harvard.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just saw them on the fringe of community. So you didn't really hear anything.
No, and nobody talked about, why are these people here? They were accepted as, being qualified to be there. And I guess other people found hard to include them because they didn't understand them.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it was a time when most people did not have close friends from other ethnic groups. Hadn't started all getting together at the time.
Harvard wasn't always taking women, right?
Oh, no, that was separate. It was called Radcliffe.
Right.
Yeah. And it was only in my year that we got a Harvard diploma.
Ah.
Yeah.
So you went to Radcliffe, and before your year, they were getting Radcliffe diplomas.
Yes.
So Harvard owned Radcliffe, but it was
No, they did not own Radcliffe. It was a separate entity.
altogether.
It had been from the time that Radcliffe was formed.
Mm.
I mean, by that time, we were taking classes at Harvard.
Got it.
But originally, when Radcliffe was founded, it would be all women classes, and they would get Harvard professors come over and give another lecture to the girls. Yeah.
So before you, they started, or the girls started going into Harvard.
Into Harvard buildings, yes, for
Right.
academic reasons. But the dorms were all separate,
Of course.
and then later on they weren't.
Right.
Things evolved.
So, yeah. So how did Radcliffe and Harvard merge? Was it?
It was decided that keeping totally separate administrations did not make economic sense.
I got it. So the Harvard people formed a separate college for girls.
But no, the Harvard people had nothing to do with forming Radcliffe.
Okay. So how did Radcliffe and Harvard? Yeah, that's.
That there were women of vision. I don't give you the date when it was formed.
Yeah.
I'm not a date person.
Right.
Said that it was unfair that women did not have the same opportunity as men.
Mm.
So why not organize this college, set up a president, trustees,
Mhm.
dorms, classrooms, all of this, and convince Harvard professors, pay them to come and give their lectures to the girls. So Harvard did not have anything to do with forming Radcliffe.
Got it.
They got pulled in.
Right.
As
And then
professors.
little by little, they just.
Well, eventually, over the years, ties got closer.
Right.
Radcliffe still had a separate president from Harvard, and God, it was probably in the 50s that it became obvious that the right thing to do, the economic thing to do, was
Got
put
it.
them together.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big. So when I talk about social justice, right? A lot of the times, the things that I talk about, because I'm Black, people are like, okay, he's talking about Black people, and it's not, right? Like up into the 50s, there was a clear messaging, right? That women couldn't do what men could
That's
do.
right. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Right.
It was discrimination against women, as there is, but many other groups, sure.
And you're at Radcliffe, and so when people see you and you're Radcliffe, like there must have been a dynamic in the classes.
Yeah, we were pretty much a minority everywhere. Yeah. And, over at the Harvard buildings, there were no women's bathrooms, for example.
Mm.
Yes, that was always fun. the first things you did at the beginning of the semester was locate all of the places where you go to the bathroom.
So okay. So during your time, there were no women's bathroom in the Harvard.
Not to start with, but
Towards the
eventually,
end, yeah.
they would, turn some over and make one.
Was there any pushback on women in your time in terms of being at Harvard?
Not that I can recall.
Yeah.
We would complain about certain things, and I suppose that's pushing back.
Right.
But,
it was a slow integration process.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, we were still glad to be there.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's another example. Someone who shows up here now, and they're like, oh, yeah, everything's fine. Look, everything's all, and they don't understand. I know that Columbia had, I was pronouncing it wrong, Barnard College.
Barnard, yeah.
Right? And now Barnard women go over to Columbia, but they still maintain. Is Radcliffe still a women's college?
Radcliffe does not exist anymore.
Got it.
Yeah,
So
we have a advanced think tank kind of thing, the Radcliffe Institute.
right,
But that's for inviting people to come and spend a year, doing nothing in art or writing or whatever it is. But it's kind of like the Institute for Advanced Study.
right,
Yeah.
right. But Barnard College, which was Columbia's version of what you're of Radcliffe, still exists to this day.
Yeah, well, that's their decision.
Right.
They're making it work.
Right.
So,
But that's what I'm saying. These things we kind of picture these days like the 50s, like it was some kind of distant, and you were a student of that, and Barnard still exists to this day. And I've been inside Barnard. When we lived in New York, they had a swimming program for kids inside their pool.
Yeah, great.
So I've been in there a few times, and I've been in the building just in general, and it's pretty integrated. You're a man, but it's there's men walking around, but yeah. So all the women, they go across and they get Columbia degrees.
Right.
Yeah. So, a little bit about your faith. When did you become a Christian?
Who said I was?
You're not? I don't know.
I will tell you that I really do not believe in God or Jesus. Sorry.
No.
Yeah,
I just.
Yeah. No,
I know you're a part of the church.
I go to church every Sunday. That's for the music.
Wow. See, I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
No, how can I say? I think I share the same beliefs and concepts that organized religion does in the way that I behave toward other people and how I want to, help the world become a better place. But I don't find the need to ascribe to any supreme being, having laid down these rules of behavior. I kind of feel that they, as I was saying earlier, have evolved through human evolution so that societies can function, all of these ways of behaving toward each other. I mean, music and nature are where I feel at peace and get my thoughts together.
Gotcha. Were either of your parents Christian?
Yes.
They both were.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So at what point did you decide you were not Christian?
Well, it's just kind of a gradual thinking through, Of course, I went to church and Sunday school and all of that. And realized that the particular denomination that I was in had a set way of thinking of things. And didn't like that particularly. They didn't seem to allow for any extraneous thoughts. When our children were born, we moved here to Princeton. We thought they should be exposed to religion. We chose a church because of the music, and children went to Sunday school, and then they began bringing home stories about what their teachers were saying about, this is what we believe, and the church down the street does not, and so they are bad people. And unless you believe what we believe here, you are bad people. And that was it. No. Sunday school. which is kind of interesting because then my son went to major in religion at college. I think he was trying to figure out just how all of this came about. What's what in all of this.
I think it's very brave to in a world that's so pushes this ideal to say no. I think that's very brave.
Well, it just is what makes me comfortable.
Right. And that makes sense to you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What about your husband? What did he?
I think he felt the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, his husband was a Lutheran minister, and he got his fill of that particular religion when he was young. And we did try to go to church for the children. That didn't work out. So, you know, we believe in being good people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think about the development, the spiritual development that you get in community?
Interesting thought. Well, certainly working with other people, being nice to them, you know, cooperation among all peoples. I suppose that's sort of spirituality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're still in the church community, and so
Yeah.
so you're still getting that development. You're doing the work. You're hearing, you're doing the work. So, I mean, I think there's no like. One of the things is that people who go to church say is that there's a benefit you get from being in church, and you're getting that. So. You're saying I believe in all of the core values and everything that's good about it. You just have some I think the church should be, because every person can't believe the same thing,
No, of course not.
right? And that's the reason why we have all these denominations,
Right.
right? So if 10 of us read the same passage and we have 10 different opinions, now we splinter off into 10 different churches. Then we raise our kids, they read the same passage. Now they're going to splinter off into 10
That's
different,
right.
and now you're going to have 10,000 churches. And I don't think God intended that. And of course, I think, so what we're saying is you should be able to maintain a difference in opinion and still be in the same church.
Hopefully.
You should be able to,
Yeah.
ideally.
Yeah, right.
And that's what you're saying. I developed a different way of thinking, but I still want to be in the church. And I think the church should be tolerant of that.
Well, the University Chapel certainly is. You know, they don't actually have a brand of religion. They're just open to any ideas of anybody. And, you know, we all get together. I listen to the music. It's great.
So do you want to go to heaven?
Is there one? I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know whether there is one. I don't know if there's an afterlife of any kind.
Yeah. But you're I mean, if they told you this idea, most people just kind of like say, yeah, I want to go.
Well, if it's a good place, you know,
Yeah.
if that makes you feel that living a good life entitles you to go there, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I grew up in the church, right? I was Seventh-day Adventist growing up.
Mhm.
And at some point I asked questions like we all do.
Yeah.
And I think I was never satisfied with all the answers and all of the script, the narrative didn't quite make sense to me in a whole. So I always had my doubts. And
Okay.
I think what you're saying is that on some level you're like, just believe it. It's almost there's this dismissal of rational thought and processing, just like just believe it, you know. And that was pretty much where they kind of left me at, just like, oh, just believe it. And I wrestle with it, and like you're saying, I believe in the core of it and exactly what it stands for. But some of the literalness, I'm not sure if it's 100%, like that Moses walked down with these two giant pillars that God wrote with his, like, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things that was
Sure.
like,
Yeah,
I don't
right.
know. And I love the idea that God incarnated himself as a human being to come and be amongst us to save us. Like, I love that idea. I'm like, yes, my God would save me, like, and come with this message for me, right? But the idea that he just died on a cross and left, it really feels me like, I feel like he could have, like, if you told me Jesus came and he left the pyramids to like tell his story, I'd be like, okay, that makes more sense to me. But the idea that Jesus just came and died and left, it kind of leaves me like, well, I wish he would, if I wish he left something more tangible.
Right. This is an experiment of God to try to bring his, if there is a God, ideas of how to live. And apparently it didn't work because people hated what Jesus had to say and killed him for it.
It pretty much tells you if you're going to walk in Jesus's footsteps, like, don't expect anything more than that. Kind of,
Right.
People are going to hate it.
Yeah, there's no reward for it other than feeling good.
Right. Right. And pretty much that's what Christianity is. You're kind of setting yourself up to be this anti-cultural voice that people aren't going to like.
Yeah.
And that's a part of my issue with modern day church, is that I feel like they're not doing that. They've kind of gotten quiet, and they're more like, just hang out here. We know the world's bad, but we don't want to ruffle too many feathers, and this is just a nice place to hang out while you finish up life.
They don't want to upset anybody by telling them what to do. They don't want to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like I was saying before, I think the church is a place that should be like trying to like do that work, and not to upset anyone, but more to being a safe space for people who are like the people who are suffering. The church should be a safe space for them. So as opposed to just serving the people who pay their tithes, it should be serving as a safe space for everyone who they could pull in possibly.
Yeah, I think a lot of churches are trying to do that.
Yeah.
Feel the need to help people in the community with various projects and things. Yeah. And it's fine. It's good to have some organization that's taking a stand and doing something. But to try to get all of the churches to agree on just what it is they should be doing. They are trying. They're doing good.
Yeah. I think you have more of a practical sense of it. Just like, we're human. You're doing something, I'm doing something. We can all just do our little bit, and it's better than nothing, kind of thing. And yeah.
But I don't see churches as a major social force in changing anything.
But I think what I'm saying is they should be, or they should try to be.
Yeah. Try harder. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if Jesus was here, that's what he would say, Yeah, I'm very much, I try to understand the deeper story here, how the Hebrews brought, the idea of one God, which, although the idea of the Messiah, and now Jesus as the Messiah, and now the text that evolved after that was became the Christian text, which is what most people's faith is based on, being held together by. So I think the idea that, Jews, Hebrews, Israelites having the message and bringing it forward, I think that's an important piece of the story. And meaning that, like, what would our world be like if we didn't have that at all?
Yeah, but each religion, has their own version of God.
Right.
And that's where the problem is. They can't agree on just exactly what this is all about.
Yeah.
And that's where religions have gotten us into all kinds of terrible wars and things. They just
Yeah.
can't allow another group of people to believe in a different God.
Yeah. So that's the root of a lot of problems.
Right?
Yeah.
There is that commandment that you should have one God and no others. And Christians, unfortunately, have taken that to believe that the God of Jews and Arabs and whatever else is not their God, and therefore,
Well, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think there is hope. I think there is a possibility that we can fix some of these human problems. Do you think so?
I'd like to be hopeful. I think most people agree that there are certain rules of behavior that we need to follow. And if we do, then things will get better. But then there are too many people who just are totally self-centered or egomaniacal and all of that, and out for themselves, and without this feeling that we are part of humanity, no matter what we look like or what we believe, then there's not a lot of hope. I know most people are good and feel this way, but in every society, everywhere, there are those who don't. That's where the problems are.
I think so, right? So this is part conversation and part interview, right? I think deep down, the majority of good people have to say, like, we have to go around and we have to stop the bullies. We cannot just say, like, oh, there's a bully over there, and you know how bullies are.
And we have to get involved. That is true.
Yeah, and we have to say, like, this is not in my
It's not
town.
acceptable.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that organization, the idea, not in my town, not in my country, not on my planet.
Yes, yes.
So at the same time, I don't care if you're all about profits, or I don't care if you're all about whatever, but we can't have you going around doing this to people.
Right.
So I think that the good people need, like, it sounds like you don't have much hope that we're going to get there anytime soon.
No, I don't think there's going to be this flash of understanding anytime. That it's going to have to evolve slowly, and people are going to have to do what they can in their communities to make it happen.
Right. Yeah. But you think most people are on board for that?
I think most people are.
Right.
That some are more committed to direct action than others.
Right.
But I think at heart, most people want what is right for everybody.
Yeah. So deep down, I think the good people, like you and me, and most people consider themselves the good people, we have to be more clear about it. And I think people are afraid to speak up.
True. Yeah.
The silent majority.
Right.
So, I think the podcast is Tell It Like It Is. It's really a chance for the silent majority not to be silent anymore, and to speak up on all of the things in the world that we really have to call out. And I've found that some people are just, they know it's wrong, they know what's happening is not good, but whether it's their job, or they're just like, no, I don't want to say anything, or I don't want to go on the record for speaking up. And so I think not a lot of people are willing to speak up in the larger sense. And again, the church has kind of fallen into this background too, like, oh no, we don't want to be
Annoy somebody by speaking up against this, that, or the other thing. That's true.
Yeah, and we want our donations. We don't want to ruffle feathers. And so I think as humans, we're called to speak up for the less fortunate or the disadvantaged.
Right. There are those of us who feel very strongly and will speak up and join a whole bunch of others. And I think there are some others who simply on their own do good things.
Right.
They don't want the recognition of having done something, and they don't want it known that they're doing it, but they are doing it in their own way. And I guess there are a lot more of those than there are people who are willing to stand up and crusade and so forth. I like to think that there are a lot of people out there just going ahead and doing the right thing.
I think so. I think so. How do you experience the good old days? You know?
Well, it was before a lot of us were really aware of all of the problems that are out there. And was that good? I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. We were certainly innocent at that time.
Right.
And I don't know, we could make these the good old days eventually, because we're now more aware
Right.
of what's going on and what can be done and what we as individuals should do.
When you came to Princeton, what was your experience of community?
Well, strange. Well, we were in Princeton for a while, and of course we got involved with schools and churches because of our children. University was very different then. This was before coeducation. So campus was very, very different. And we found it a little strange.
Like
It
all
was
men.
all men. Oh yeah, there was this attitude that women were lesser beings. No way were they going to come on campus. Boy, you should have heard the alumni when that happened. Wow.
So your husband was teaching at that time.
Oh yes, yeah.
So he was teaching these classes of all men.
All men, right.
And I guess he didn't participate in that, but he heard it around him.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. And you're raising your kids, and yeah, you said it was a little strange, so I wanted you to kind of paint the picture of.
Well, having on one hand the community where everybody was welcome and everything was fine, and then this group of isolated men on a campus right down smack in the middle of town, and it was rather strange.
They were like keeping to themselves, or
Yeah,
it was like a weird silent group?
I don't feel that at that time the university had as much community interaction as they do now.
Right.
So it was like two different worlds.
Right next to each other.
Yeah.
And then women came.
Yes, they kind of eased them in, shall we say. That they let it be known that women would be accepted in all classes, not just a brand new class of freshmen. That they would have transfers in sophomores, juniors, and seniors, which seemed like a good idea. But what really occurred was that all of the women who initially applied came to Princeton because they were not happy where they were. And they brought some of their same problems along. So, and being a real minority in each of these classes didn't seem to help. But by the time they started, letting a whole lot of women in the different classes, things got better. But yet it was kind of obvious what had happened with that idea of admission.
It was only 3 years of
Yeah. Right.
Sophomores and
Yeah.
little by little.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember there being any traction when they started letting Blacks into the college?
Not that I was aware of.
Right.
I know
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Black men were allowed before women.
Yeah, but not very many.
Right.
Because Princeton was pretty much against admitting Black students for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Because of their Southern ties. I think.
Right. They call it the Ivy League of the South.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think.
Because I wasn't on campus all the time.
Right.
I really don't know how things were working.
Right. What school did your kids go to?
Well, they went. Oh, the time they were old enough to go to school, we were in Hopewell.
Right.
So it was just a very different community than Princeton back we thought the schools were fine. They were integrated. Everybody, we thought that the teaching ideas in Hopewell were better. That was when Princeton was experimenting with open classrooms and all of grades intermixed and general chaos. So we were kind of glad we weren't here then.
Do you remember integration back in your high school days or college days? You remember hearing about those things?
High school was integrated in Cambridge. And, apparently had been for a long time. There was no problem with that.
Yeah. And the students were generally happy. There was
The friends that I had were happy.
Yeah.
High schools then had the college course people and the general trade, or we're not going to college people. So
I see.
the friends that I had were all in the college class, and we
Got
all
it.
had the same ideas.
Got it. Did you keep in touch with any of them? Your high school friends in general?
Not any of them really. No.
Yeah.
We all kind of went different ways after high school.
Yeah, I know, like in the good old days, I don't know. So in my mind, the good old days were just different than now. So I'm always like, but like the classes, reunions stayed in contact for like a lot longer than, I haven't been to any high school reunions.
Yeah, I think my high school still has reunions. They're all back up in Massachusetts. And so
Yeah.
they haven't gone. So Princeton is a big college for reunions.
Right.
Damn. I think it's unique in the Ivy League for the intensity of alumni relations. Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. Sure, it's why Princeton has all that money.
Exactly. Have you been to any Harvard Radcliffe reunions?
Yeah, back in the days we went to some, especially the Harvard 25th, which was a big deal.
Right.
And they had all kinds of festivities. And now I keep getting emails from Harvard, don't you want to come back and do this, that, and the other thing? I think, why? So,
Yeah. No, your classmates? Or do you keep up with any of your
I
classmates?
think that was a couple of them,
Yeah. But it's there's no desire to go back to like hang out with the.
I'd rather go back and visit these specific people
Right.
and hang out in a bunch of people that I don't remember.
Right, exactly. Like, oh yeah.
It was huge classes. I mean, a couple thousand there. So
Yeah. Well, I don't know. So me personally, I know that I think growing up in the church, I kind of felt like the church is this beacon of hope for the community. So I've held on to that, and despite whatever doubts I have about specifics or this and that, I've always held on to the idea of this beacon of hope for the community. And I feel like the community obviously needs help, and people with more can do more help. And I often like refer back to the early church and those kinds of days. And I don't know if I'm just like an optimist, just like, yeah, we can be more like that. And I think we would live more united and be more connected. And there's a lot of churches in Princeton, and I think we should have more like church community day, just like all the churches come together and do more picnics and those kinds of things.
could be really interesting. Right. As you say, churches are a wonderful way of getting a group of like-minded people together who can accomplish things in the community. This is really fun.
Yeah, and I think Princeton has been, I don't know, people kind of stay in their boxes. Everyone's busy. Everyone, they have their life and they just kind of stay in their boxes and those kinds of things.
Most people are so busy they don't really have time to stop and think about, I've always gone to this church. Is this really where I want to be? Is there something else? easier to go along doing what you've been doing.
How are your kids now? How was that experience being a parent?
As far as I know, they are fine.
Yeah.
They're not the type that call up every week or anything. We have a little social messaging up on Slack, where we can exchange thoughts and pictures and keep in touch that way.
SLACK Slack.
It's a form of communication set up for businesses, I think, for
Okay.
veteran employees.
Yeah.
It's like social media,
Yeah, it is.
but it's
yeah.
restricted only to us.
Right.
Yeah.
And the grandkids?
No grandkids.
Is it possible? Are either of your kids thinking about kids?
No.
Yeah.
My daughter's not married. My son has physical problems that he had from birth. And because of all of the x-ray treatments that he had to receive to figure out what was wrong, he and his wife have decided that it's probably better not to try to have children because genetic problems might be.
So that he's not adopting or anything
No.
like that. What did your daughter say about kids?
She's not interested in having kids, and she's not interested in getting married.
Okay. Did you want grandkids?
Totally up to my children.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you have plenty of friends who are like,
oh yes,
well, we want,
Well, it's not a desire that I have. If
Yeah.
they had them, I would be perfectly happy. That would be great. But it's not my decision to make, and it's not something I need to fill my life. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about your life? You're saying it's not something you need to fulfill your life.
I have enough things going that I feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
I have things that I love to do that make me happy. I have good friends. I don't seem to need anything else.
Yeah. I mean, so your friends, you guys do stuff like, how is that like?
Well, maybe we do music.
Yeah.
And somebody needs help, we help each other. And don't interact a whole lot socially because we all have our own lives, off in different directions. But
Yeah.
they're there if we need them.
Yeah. I know it was really hard losing your husband and stuff like that. Yeah. Have you adjusted? Are you?
I think finally, yes.
Yeah.
It was hard at first, as it is for everyone.
Yeah, of
undergoing
course.
something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this life, we're just born into it, and a life partner, it's like everyone talks about wanting that. Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like you could have another life partner?
I doubt it. I have a good friend, a male friend.
Okay.
He was here for dinner last night.
Oh, okay.
We enjoy talking with each other. We've known each other for 30, 40 years. And his wife has died.
And he knew your husband, I'm assuming.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Did a lot of things together.
Did you know his wife?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Oh, yeah. We were good. A couple
Yeah.
pairs. We did.
Yeah.
They sang in the chapel choir, and we did. Sang in Madrid groups. We went on trips together. So, yeah.
So is this like your unofficial boyfriend?
I suppose you could say that.
Oh, that's really nice.
But yeah, that's someone I really enjoy talking with.
Yeah.
My friends tend to talk about the same things over and over again, their grandchildren and their physical ailments and how they would save the world. But Roger has different ideas, does different things. In fact, he just published a very interesting book, which I will loan you a copy of. And I think he would find his ideas really quite interesting.
What is it called?
It's morality, how moral behavior has come to be, how it's evolved.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you'd enjoy that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, Betty, I don't know. Like I said, I do feel like I'm different than most people, right?
Yeah.
And at some point, I felt like I used to feel like I can change the whole world, and I just want to like get a message. And now I'm more like I want to just find more people who get it and just have that smaller community of people who just get it. And sometimes I feel like humans behave in a way that's just not practical. You know, like, why?
I know. What were they thinking?
Yeah. Like, why can't we just get along? You know, smile, wave, hug, have dinners and picnics and just be less busy. You know, like you can spend less time worrying about things and more time connecting with each other. And I really I'm like, it's weird. Like I feel like a weird person who's saying something weird and everyone's like, you need to go and, you know, and I'm like, well, no, I think you should be like more grounded and connecting and
Everybody's different.
right.
You're never going to convince anyone who believes differently of your own visions. So.
It kind of, I'm still getting used to the fact that I'm in this space with that many people who think that much differently.
Yes.
And at one point people say like, oh, it's because you're in the Northeast.
Well, you know, and people think that Princeton is like living in an ivory tower because there's so many people more like us that think the way we do than, say, down in Trenton.
Right.
Totally different world
there. What are you most excited about? The summer's coming, the weather's getting nice. What are you excited about?
Getting outdoors more.
You can track your flowers and
Go hiking.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks I'm going out to California and hike in the Mojave Desert.
Wow.
Looking forward to that.
How far? What's the hike?
Oh, it will be about 10 days of hiking in all kinds of places.
Sleeping outside?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's nice. You're gonna carry your tent with you, kind of thing.
I'm going with a friend who has a huge van.
Okay.
And so, you know.
Okay,
that will be
you'll
there.
drive, hike,
Well,
hike.
we'll go to a camping place. And
Okay.
stay there for several days while we do various day hikes here and there.
Nice.
Go find another place where we haven't been.
Yeah, that's a good summer trip.
This summer, I'm going to go with my daughter up to Wyoming on a couple of hiking programs.
Okay.
So we'll have kind of a girls' time. I'm going to fly out to her home and we'll drive to Wyoming from Minnesota. Have some quality time together.
How old is she now?
She's 52.
So, I mean, she's unconventional, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So what are her views? Is she like, does she have a strong view? Like, women don't need men, or what's?
No, I think if she had met the right person, she would
Yeah.
have gotten married. You know, she dated a lot in high school and college, but you know, she chose a career in information technology, where women are a minority,
Right.
and men look down at women field. And so she said she never met anybody in her field who wasn't a nerd,
Right.
a crazy guy, or you know, just
Right.
not anyone she wanted to spend her life with.
Right. And she's still young.
Well, you know, she has lots of friends. She does international folk dancing.
Okay.
All kinds of interesting things like that. So there's a wide community of friends, male and female.
You said like she's not looking to get married at this point?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, so she's kind of like, I'm happy with, yeah.
She's happy the way she is. Maybe if, you know, some new man came into her
Shows up.
circle of friends and they hit it off, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not something that she worries about, and I don't bug her about not being married.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I'm grateful for life, and just happy to be here. And you know, I think the ozone does kind of worry me a little bit in terms of like not just the ozone, but like when we're cutting down forests and these things.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of hope in terms of these electric cars that's getting popular now.
Okay, but where's the electricity used to run them coming from?
It's gas powered electricity.
Yep, until they find a way of pulling it out of the sky or something.
You're
We
right.
still have that problem. But it will come, I think.
Yeah.
There are enough people committed to figuring out new ways to do things. So,
Yeah, and I think if we keep going with the electric cars and we'll have an electric bus and we'll keep working on an electric plane and then we'll develop the solar energy and you know our neighbor on the other side, he's working on fusion. So I hope we'll get the environment stabilized kind of
well,
thing.
we better, or we're not going to be here.
It's scary.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Aren't you surprised that we aren't doing more? Like, it's like you're
Well,
sitting.
there's so many naysayers still out there. They're involved in politics. Some of our elected officials are not on board as yet. They're in denial. But I think in the academic communities, I think a lot of our engineering students are well on the way to develop the kind of technology we're going to need.
The naysayers and these things, like, do you feel they're politically driven with ulterior motives, or do you think they just doubt the science?
I simply do not understand those people. What are they thinking? I guess they aren't. They're just, letting junk come out of their mouth. Maybe they have some ulterior motive. Maybe they feel their constituents feel the same way, or they actually believe this junk that they're spouting. I just don't know.
Doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, with places like Princeton, and there's plenty of great universities and plenty of scientists, at this point, it cannot just be stupidity. That's in my mind. It can't just be stupidity.
It's willful disbelief.
Right. And if you're telling me you want to keep your constituents, fine. If you're telling me, you're in the pockets of some kind of gas guzzling, whatever, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But it cannot just be those people are stupid kind of thing.
Let's hope not.
Yeah.
That would be too depressing to think.
Yeah, they're professionals. So all in all, you feel a positive, like the world is in good hands, or like, how do you?
I wouldn't say the world is in good hands. I think that the world has the capability of getting to be in good hands if the right thinking people speak up, come into power,
Right.
whatever.
But do you feel like it's happening? Do you feel like we're moving away from it? What do you think it's?
Well, I think more people are becoming aware of what is necessary to do to make things go the right way.
Yeah.
It's kind of a maybe just beginning the transition. Let's hope that's what it is. There are more people aware of what's going on, I think, than there has been in the past.
No, you mentioned slow change before, and I know that slow change is the way of the world, so to speak.
Well, yes, true.
And
everything is far too complicated to make a simple solution possible. So
right.
It has to go little by little.
Yeah, and I think I've wrestled with that, and I'm coming to terms with that. But in the meantime, there's going to be wars. There's going to be starvation. There's going to be people dying. There's going to be mass shootings, and like all of this stuff is still going to be happening.
Yes.
The Christians believe that this is end times kind of thing.
So what do we mean by the end?
Jesus is coming soon, and like these terrible things have to happen, and
to make way for him or something.
It's almost like it's like a climactic thing. So these things are just happening, and the climax is Jesus coming. So
things have to get really bad before they will change. Is that
I think so. My issue is that the narrative that people believe is that things are not going to get better until Jesus comes. So there's this, you believe, there's no slow change happening. We can all see slow change happening, but Christian conservatives, or at least some within the narrative, believe that these things are never going to stop until Jesus comes. And there's going to be a continual, like they talk at some point, the Bible says things like earthquakes, natural disasters, and famines, and some wars and rumors of war. So the Bible kind of gives this narrative that kind of says these things must happen.
Well, they are, aren't they?
And I'm hoping that we can kind of make progress and kind of figure these things out. So I'm just wondering, you've been in church for many years, so you must have heard these things.
Well, not in the church that I go to.
Okay.
As I say, the university chapel is as about non-denominational as you can get.
Really?
Right.
So they just talk about.
They welcome all beliefs.
Yeah. So it's more about the virtues.
It's being good people.
Yeah.
Mainly what they're about.
Okay.
They do scripture readings, and we have sermons and all of that.
Yeah. So you've never heard this?
Sing in the choir. No, I'm not aware of
wars
this
and rumors of wars and yeah.
No,
Jesus is coming soon and
excuse me.
All of the end times.
Nope, not aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of dark.
True.
It's kind of dark. And sometimes I talk to people and they talk about like these things must happen, or these things are, the Bible says it'll happen, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's less optimistic and more like just waiting for Jesus kind of thing. Which
So do they feel that since all of this has to happen until Jesus comes, there's nothing they can do about it?
Right.
They just sit there?
So my concern is that
oh dear.
well, the best of them would say you do what you can until Jesus comes.
Okay. All right.
But it's you can't like turn the whole ship around, because the ship is destined to go in this way until, and so you see the problem with that.
Oh yes, certainly.
So that's my problem with that too, is that it kind of has this dark worldview. And I'm more like, no, we have to do something and not just wait for a savior to come. And I never liked that specifically. Yeah. Yeah.
I think my voice is about to wear out.
Yeah, no, we're good.
Talked
Yeah.
this much in years, it seems, but yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, it's been really
you.
interesting.
Yeah.
To talk to someone like you. Yes.
Yeah, and the world's happening all around us, right? And in our perception, the world and that's the thing why I do this, is because when you hear someone else's perception, you can get a different sense. Like you're both experiencing the same thing, but they're having a totally different experience.
Right.
So it's good to kind of talk to each other.
It is.
That's what the world needs. More people talking to each other.
Yeah, not just the same people all the time.
Yeah, and I know it's awkward to kind of break circle and say, well, and sometimes it's awkward to hear views outside of that may seem rational or whatever, So yeah, I think by me doing it encourages others, and I think it trickles down and it helps, down the road.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to leave us with any final thoughts?
No, I found this a very interesting experience and wonder what other people will think about it.
Yeah, it's like a time capsule, I think we're speaking to the future, and when we speak about our experiences, it kind of helps people put their experiences in perspective. So I hope that it can do humanity some good.
Well, hope people will listen and think.
Yeah,
it's a good thing to do.
Yes. Thank you, Betty.
Thanks, Alexi. This was fun.